While economic growth is often celebrated, it's crucial to ask who's really benefiting from it. These images of middle class protesters can provide some insight. It is clear that economic growth and financial stability are crucial to this country. However, we don't see these benefits being provided to our working class, and that needs to change. Middle class America is synonymous with wage stagnation. As a country that prides itself on creating the most job opportunity and prosperity within the world, middle class America is struggling. The cost of living has increased due to rising inflation, and with wages falling behind, people want an increased federal minimum wage. It currently sits at $7.25 per hour, which it has remained at since 2009, which is unlivable in this day and age, according to the Department of Labor. As a college student working part time during the school year and full time during summer and winter breaks, I can attest that the middle class Americans must see a pay increase within their hourly wages. I make $14.75 an hour at a corporate retail company that is twice the federal and state minimum wage. However, considering rent, gas, groceries, tuition payments, and bills, I'm barely scraping by. Since 2020, the average consumer has paid more than 23% for goods, and prices will continue to rise for goods such as gas and eggs in 2025, according to D. Silver with the Pew Research Center. As I mentioned, middle class Americans need an increased wage in 2025 and beyond due to a rising cost of living in terms of house prices, gas, and groceries and healthcare. By increasing the federal minimum wage to 15 an hour and forcing states to comply, the middle class population will be able to thrive rather than experience financial fatigue and stressors, according to Cooper et al. With the Economic Policy Institute. Living paycheck to paycheck can increase stress, anxiety, leading to poor mental health and poor work ability. With an increase in poor mental health amongst low hourly earners, we can see substance abuse issues, mental ailments, or physical ailments, social isolation, and depression becoming more common. Considering our middle class workers, let's examine how stagnant wages have affected them. As of 2024, 340 million people live in the United States. Nearly 170 million of those people have not seen a substantial pay increase since 1971, according to Kochler with the Pew Research Center. This puts 51% of the American population in the middle class bracket. Productivity has risen by 80%, while wages have increased by a meager 29% over a whopping 40 years. 40% of Americans working a full time job find it hard to make ends meet with the cost of living rising due to inflation, according to Burley with Fortune. Meanwhile, the top 1% of earners have experienced a wage increase of 160% over the last 40 years, according to Michel and Codrell with the Economic Policy Institute. So, why does this matter? It matters because it shows the exploitation of the working class citizens. With low earnings, it is easier to force middle class workers to work longer hours to try to make up their budget deficits, while high earners reap economic benefits what the middle class does not see. It also shows workers' need for higher wages through their active campaigning, highlighting that wages lower than 15 an hour are unlivable. Workers who earn less than a livable wage report feeling anxiety, stress when it comes to paying off debts, bills, and basic necessities, according to the TIAA, a financial service organization. According to the Economic Policy Institute, wage stagnation has many contributing factors. First being the decline in union membership. With the decline of unions, low and middle earners lack the bargaining power to hold companies accountable. Secondly, increased globalization. Global economic trade increasing, we experience more competition that can exploit workers by paying them at a lower rate, while company CEOs benefit at a larger rate. Lastly, public policy. Federal minimum wage is one of the most substantial contributing factors to stagnant wages. Considering the inflation rate, the 7.25 hourly wage is at its lowest purchasing power in nearly 70 years. Nearly 50 million Americans earn less than 15 per hour, which is one third of the workforce, according to Louis with CBS. If hourly wages kept up with and remained consistent with the economy, by 2025 we should see a wage around 21.45 rather than 7.25. So what can be done? Support the Raise the Wage Act of 2021 and reintroduce it to Congress. H.R. 603 is a bill that calls for an increase in federal minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 during a 5-year period. Congress would provide assistance to employers who comply with this bill during the wage transition and provide assistance with employment opportunities. The bill also eliminates minimum wage requirements for tipped, newly hired, and disabled workers. And at the end of the 5-year period, all employees will have the same minimum wage as their coworkers, disregarding those who've received promotions and hold other higher titles. Advantages to the bill. The bill would raise the minimum wage to 9.25 the first year it's enacted and will continue to increase it until it reaches 15. Once 15 is reached, the minimum wage will be adjusted yearly to keep it in pace with the median minimum wage, which will reduce wage stagnation as we've seen it within the last 40 years. The wage increase would uplift 50% of workers who fall below the poverty line and increase their quality of living. And our economy has grown exponentially within the last 50 years, which makes it more than capable of increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour, according to the Economic Policy Institute. Disadvantages to the bill. There are concerns about small businesses and that the bill would negatively affect their livelihoods. Another concern would be the vastly different economies from state to state, and having a blanket minimum wage would be vastly disproportionate to individuals who live in states with higher living costs compared to those with lower living costs, according to Cruz with National Law Review. So, why do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? With the cost of living increasing in all states by 2025, citizens need to see relief in their paychecks. It would allow over half of our workforce to rise above the poverty line. With higher wages, citizens will have more disposable income to put back into our economy, which would boost revenues overall. And lastly, with higher wages, citizens will experience less financial stress, have the ability to save more from their paychecks, have more disposable income, and experience more financial freedom due to financial stability. As we've seen from the issues I've discussed today, America faces stagnant wages and a heightened cost of living. As of 2025, we must remember we have remained relatively the same since the 1970s when it comes to our federal minimum wage, and our federal minimum wage hasn't changed since 2009. Keeping that in mind, one third of the working class earns less than 15 an hour, while nearly 40% of Americans struggle to make ends meet while working full-time jobs. Meanwhile, the top 1% of earners' paychecks have skyrocketed by 160% within the last 40 years. Citizens must step up to the plate and bring Raise the Wage Act of 2021 to their legislative representatives in both local and federal levels and demand to see economic change that will finally positively affect them. In closing, I urge you to consider the nation's economic growth, take action, and advocate for higher wages for the working middle class. Thank you.